Hey, welcome everybody to AI News and Gurus, the show for intelligent distributors. My name is Brian Hopkins, and I'll be soon joined with my host, Brooks Hamilton. And we're going to talk to you today about how do we bring AI into distribution in a way that makes sense for people. Really looking forward to the show. Brooks, how you doing today, buddy?
Couldn't be happier.
Awesome. Good to
This is going
see
to be a lot
you.
of fun.
Good to see you from the great state of Texas.
Thank you. Thank you. Austin welcomes you. We are having a great day here. It's gorgeous outside, and there is an absolute ton going on within AI, as well as the distribution industry. So we've got a great show coming up.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And let me just tell you a little bit about this particular show. So it's a little different than what you've seen from DSG, but it's in the same mission of trying to bring information to distributors that you need to help run your businesses. So this show is going to run a little different in that we're going to talk about news. So you get a ton of news from everywhere, right? Whether it's emails or podcasts or LinkedIn, all the news about AI, you're getting it from all over the place. And what Brooks and I are going to try to do is take what we think are some important things to talk about and have a brief discussion about what that looks like. Then we'll go into another segment where we'll talk about AI and distribution. And it's not going to be all technical, right? It'll be things that are important for distribution as you understand and make this AI journey. We'll have a lot of different angles and things to talk about. And then the last part we're going to bring in is a tech guru, right? So it's really important that we continue to understand what's going on with tech and how things are evolving. So we've got John Carrico from Epicor that's going to join us later, and he's going to talk a lot about what's happening today within distribution, and then what's happening into the future. So we really want to make sure that this is a fun environment for you. You learn something, and that we bring something to the table for AI for everyone. Before we get into that, though, let me just do a little bit of commercial read because Ian would not be happy with me if we didn't talk about the biggest show in distribution in 2025, and that is applied AI for distributors. This is our third show, and this one's going to be even bigger and better than the other two. And the reason I say that is we've got a great lineup of speakers, right? We've got some AI experts from Noel Russell to Trent Gillespie to some real industry heavyweights from Don Sarno and Janet Zelinsky and Paul Kennedy. This combined with the absolute great tech vendors that are there to help you solve your problem, right? To really help you figure out what's my journey look like and where can I get technological help to figure that out. So this show combines it all into one. And I will say, please sign up quickly. Tickets are going fast. In fact, I'd also mentioned that 75% of the companies who have signed up already are already bringing multiple people. So you've got an opportunity to bring multiple people at a discount to be able to take in all of the information. So sign up today, go to applyforAIdistributors.com and make sure that you're part of the group that's there. And our sponsor today is Epicor, right? That's the software company we all know, and they've helped thousands of distributors over the last 50 years integrate their businesses and functions into one ERP system. Because of that deep experience in distribution, they understand our world and your world and the unique challenges. Epicor ERPs are designed to help you operate more efficiently today while preparing you for what's coming next. They'll transform your ERP from a system of record to a system of insights and action with easy to use, practical, outcome focused, and responsible AI. Epicor solutions provide distributors like you with an ERP that's ready to use out of the box and helps you with long-term growth. If you're interested in new technology, they'd love to have a chat with you and help you understand exactly what you're looking for. So you can reach out to them at epicor.com/distribution. And as I said, our host today, myself, Brian Hopkins and Brooks Hamilton, and then John will be joining us a little bit later in the program. So with that being said, Brooks, let's jump into it, my friend.
Yeah, let's do it. I think we have some really cool news out there. One of the things that I think caught our eye was an announcement from Shopify. And just to to give a little bit of background on Shopify, what we saw was um, their CEO sent out a memo both to everybody internally, and then it expanded out pretty broadly on, listen, we need to figure out how we're going to be AI first. Shopify, great organization, really tech forward, but it reminds me of the scene of as Brad Pitt is sitting down in Moneyball and they're going through the room looking at prospects, and eventually what he decides is this isn't going to work. Instead, we're going to have to kind of force the issue, and it's going to get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. That memo was pretty much that scene where the memo went out and the contents of it were, listen, if we are serious about being an AI first organization, all hires, all hiring requests are going to have to prove that the task and role cannot already be performed by AI today or AI in the near future, which is
And,
a shocker.
yeah, that is a complete, 180 from where I think distribution is at today, right? I mean, we say, hey, we need a head count. Sales are up 15%. We need a head count because the transactions are going up. We need people to help process those. So that is a huge mindset change. How do you think that's going to go over in distribution?
I think it's foreign. I think it's really a foreign concept right now,
Yeah.
irrespective of the size of the organization. And we've seen some neat things come out of both really innovative as well as some really large organizations. But the idea of, oh, I should hire uh, an AI application or an AI internal tool or look to source this work via a robot. I mean, that's just kind of
Yeah.
not in the realm right now, I think, of what we typically think about. But um, as we approach faster and faster acceleration of AI capabilities, at one point or another, it's going to shift over into distribution in some really meaningful ways. I mean, you've had a great career in distribution, Brian. How do you see it beginning to trickle in or to reflect on the industry in general?
Well, I think it's already starting to a degree, right? I mean, we're starting to see companies use, AI predictive tools for orders and sales process and things up front. I think where the huge mind shift is going to be is I'm going to review you now, not if you use AI, but I'm going to review you now how well you use it.
Mm,
So it no longer becomes yeah, try it if you'd like it, to see if it helps you. That mind shift change that Shopify is making is you have to use it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a big big shift in the way in which we evaluate the assets that we bring into the organization.
Yeah.
One of the things that this hits for me is thinking of intelligence as another asset to buy. So before we had one option if we wanted more intelligence. More intelligence equals either two ways to get it, more people or more training. Like
Yeah.
your options. Um, Now we kind of have a third option in there, which is fundamentally different from the others, which is, oh, I can choose to go buy more intelligence for a department in my organization. Hey, what?
Yeah. It's a mind
uh,
blowing thought.
that's talk about foreign. That's unusual.
Yeah. And I think it's going to take distribution some time to get to that point where that mind shift makes that, you make it to that point. But I think as leaders, you have to start thinking about it. Right. And one of the things I think about a lot is, we've got guys like myself who've been in distribution for a lot of years.
Mhm.
So there's a certain legacy around what's next, right? What do I leave behind?
Yeah.
And for me, if I'm running a distribution company at this point, I'm thinking about what's the next 30, 40, 50 years look like for my company? And how do I help enable that AI driven mindset to help this company be viable into the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you think about kind of the timing around that, and I think as a leader and my legacy, if I've come up in the organization as an owner, an executive, an employee, like I knew the playbook.
Yes.
I know what my customers value. I know how to manage my vendors, my inventory, and the plays were pretty consistent. It feels like the playbook is getting reviewed. They talk about Saban having a giant binder or binders. Um,
Yes.
Here's what you do for every single position for training, workouts, mental work, all of that. And we kind of think about some of that is instantiated in distribution as well, either in our standard operating procedures, our software, and most likely just that connective tissue of teams and all of kind of how a team works or how what a team does in order to make it work. There's an example from NASA about the space shuttle, and they were sending up the space shuttle, and they needed it to do a bit of a reverse burn in order to put it into a proper orbit. And as they were running their simulation, they found that the process kept failing over and over. And they were like, well, we're following the standard procedure. It should all work right. But it was somebody on the team knew, oh, at that point, one of the software programs reboots because it's in a garbage collection phase. And that was ruining the whole mission. But that knowledge wasn't stored in a piece of paper anywhere. It was stored in some of just the knowledge that teams have.
Yeah.
So when I think about like what do great solutions and AI solutions in particular look like, I begin thinking about not just what is the software, but also what is the interaction on the team? How are we going to have to start thinking about teams a little bit differently and the work involved with those teams? There was an article you pointed out a little while ago about um, some work done at Procter and Gamble, right?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. They took four different scenarios, right? Individuals working by themselves, working within teams, and then they said, all right, let's put together somebody working with AI by themselves and somebody working with AI in teams. So they put
So,
that together.
so this was a study done
Yeah,
by Wharton, something like around 600 or 750 professionals randomly assigned.
right. Yeah, good setup. Good setup. You're good at that. But what was interesting to me is that what the output was, right? Because the teams themselves were 9.2 percentage points, not 9.2%, 9.2 percentage points more productive than their counterparts. And they were almost 17% faster. So all of a sudden you've gotten the nirvana of work, right? More productive and they're faster and they're better at it because they're using these AI tools. And, and you said something earlier about this was all in people's heads and the guy who's been here 30 years knows everything. Now we've got the ability to take all of the things that those people know using various AI tools and put it in a way that the person who started last week can access and learn from that in ways we've never been able to do it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just an amazing way to think about it.
Yeah. I think that was a fascinating study as well as the implications.
Yeah.
They randomly assigned, they said, all right, who gets AI stuff versus who doesn't? The output they found of one person was the equivalent of two people on a team without those same tools. That's a giant difference.
It's a huge difference. So I'd say to kind of wrap this topic and talk about the next one is this really to me means this isn't about a feature or a product or some little add-on that you're going to put into your system somewhere. This is really about how do you change your whole organization to be AI first, AI driven, so that you are setting itself up for the next 40, 50 years and not being one of the laggards in the industry.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the next piece of news that we just want to hit real quick, and it's really a tip from me to you, is how to use a large language model to do two things. Number one, use it in a way that can help you, but also use it in a way that helps you embrace the use of these tools. So the example that I like to use is Perplexity. And then if you haven't used it yet, please get yourself an account. I sent you one today, Brooks, a pricing one that I think you liked. But for everybody who signed up for this call or on this call, I'm going to send you a prompt as it relates to the tariffs that are going on. So this isn't about a tariff conversation, but it's about how do you learn what's happening in your industry using a large language model to gather all the right information. So real quickly, Perplexity feels a lot like Google, but it's kind of reversed, right? So you ask it a question the right way, and it's going to give you the answer and then tell you where it got the answer from, versus you having to try to do all that hunting and pecking yourself.
So,
I'll give you the prompt. It will ask you what industry you're in, and
mhm.
then it will go and search the entire World Wide Web, if we can even say that word anymore. That's weird. Even saying that. But it'll search the entire web for news of what's going on within that industry for you, and it will give you a level of summary for what's happening, because it's changing rapidly, and it seems every day there's a new piece of news. So it will help you be able to keep up on what's happening within your industry, but also help you learn how to use these tools.
I think that's a great approach to this. So, um, Perplexity is a kind of like a search tool that was released probably about 18 months ago, and you use it much the same way you use Google, but the results that you get out of it are much more answers as opposed to
Yes.
links. And are there other ways that you use Perplexity on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, this is one. It's an example that I use with the distributor during the California wildfires.
Oh,
He called me up and he says, "Man, I really need to provide my leadership with what's going on around my branches." And it was
mhm.
around the wildfires, but in general, he needed to know across the country what was going on in his branches. So I literally sat with him for about 15 minutes and we put together a prompt together. And now he uses it every day to go in and uses that prompt, and it gives him an up to date information about any kind of weather event, any kind of unrest or anything that's happening near one of his locations. So he doesn't have to pull a meeting together with his managers. He doesn't have to go call 14 people to figure it out. He can get a quick snapshot, provide that to leadership. So these tools are built in a way that can help you with what's going on in your business and help you solve problems, versus just the new craze about creating a pictures of different people wearing your favorite sports teams or whatever ChatGPT can do now with pictures. The tools are much more powerful than the ways some people are using them, though.
Yeah, I think about the prior comment you made about how how I should go about thinking as I'm a leader in distribution in my company about incorporating AI. And chances are I've not had to mess with AI and maybe not even with much technology, and I can still be highly successful. But as we look out across the technology landscape, we feel like this is a big deal. This is
Yeah.
a out of context event. This is like it's really coming out of left field. And so I need to begin to become more familiar with this technology. But um, how might I do that as a leader when I don't know how to format a prompt, or I don't spend my time reading about AI news. I spend my time reading about things that are very relevant to the typical operating of my company. How do I put a toe in the water there?
Yeah, I mean, the prompting is hard, right? I literally, as I started to learn these things, it took me a long time to figure out I'm not that good at it. Because you have to ask it questions the right way to get the right answers. So there's a technique called prompt generation, and that's also what I'll send everybody on this call is just different scenarios to help you understand how these prompts work and how they can help you understand what's going on with these large language models. But I just say you've got to get your hands on it, right? There's a leader is doing in some cases, and this is the case where leaders have to do,
Okay.
have to humble yourself to say, you know what, I don't know. I know
Mhm.
exactly how this business works. I know exactly what's going on, every minute of every day because I've been here 30 years doing this role in this company. But this is one where you just kind of have to humble yourself and say, I'm not sure, and ask for help. There's a ton of resources. I'm opening myself up to the entire call here. If you send me a note, I'll be glad to happy to help you in any way. But it's really about trying and doing, because then you can have some real coaching discussions with people that you work with around using these tools to help you.
Yeah.
Cool. So a couple of cool pieces of news. Let's transition to the next big topic, Brooks. And this is really about how do we, what's going on in distribution with, in your case, we were talking about software, right? So the software landscape is changing dramatically. I think everybody can understand that from the surface level, but that has huge implications for our IT teams, right? And how, as leaders, we think about IT.
Mhm.
So what are some of the things that you're seeing that the people on this call need to be at least thinking about or asking their IT, team about?
Yeah. Well, when I think about the typical course of we're going to begin doing AI or working on AI in our organization. I think a lot of times, like the knee-jerk response is, let's go talk to IT.
Yeah,
And that makes a lot of sense because that's where a lot of the activity is going to happen. But there are some super important things that I think need to get worked out at the executive level, at least in those car rides back and forth to work as you're thinking about these things, which are one, do I really understand what's likely to occur with AI in our industry? Second is, um, what is, how do I go about, how do I see AI beginning to play out within my, not industry, but my organization? So, do I really want to push for changes in the way that my team operates or my team is structured? And if I think about like where the other big decision is like, where do I go put some dollars? How
yeah,
do I begin to experiment with this? Um, if you take a look at if you can get a 1% improvement in any of the various metrics within your organization, where should you go try to get that 1% improvement? Number one area is conversion rate. So sales conversion rate, it for basically the say if you can invest the same amount of activity, money, people in the process and improve your close rate 1%, that's going to matter the most. Second is pricing. So if you can increase your pricing without having to increase your cost of goods sold or any of the transactional fees associated with it, that's second biggest bang. Third one, inventory management. And then there's a pretty long list after that.
yeah,
And I think about like if I had $500,000 as an owner that I want to invest somewhere in my organization, I would look pretty directly at the sales rep journey and the customer journey to see how I can go about improving those via AI.
yeah. I think you're starting to see a lot of that creep in, right? There's a lot of companies out there that are helping distributors do that. And because it's easy is not the right word, but it feels more comfortable. It feels like, okay, we can make a difference sales impact wise by dealing with the transactions that are in front of us, dealing with the customers that are in front of us. But I'd also say there's a whole other part of that, maybe part of that $500,000 investment on the back end of the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's scary, right? I mean, you start talking about how do I make warehousing more efficient,
Mhm.
right? It starts to impact people. So that feels like that might be a little more scary than say, how do I deal with a sales transaction that's coming into me? It doesn't necessarily impact people in that way. So I think about a couple things. So, and I'll harken back. This is going to date the heck out of me right here. But when I started a branch manager, branch in Gary, Indiana, in with Granger, I had a branch manager who was really good at moving inventory towards the counter that was fast moving and towards the shipping bench that was fast moving.
Mhm.
Very disciplined, very good at it. Problem was that was really data driven. It was once a month and it was a huge project and it was 2 to 3 hours every time we did it. And it was a lot of work.
Whew.
Yeah, and he was good at it and he was good at making that happen, but not all the branch managers were, even though we all had the same access to the same data. And the reason I tell you that is because now these AI systems can do that in a way where it's incremental every day. So almost like you cycle count, right? You cycle count your warehouse every day. You do the same thing with this dynamic slotting.
Mhm.
So now all of a sudden, every day your inventory is moving faster and closer to the place where it moves the most.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's not such a big project.
What makes it not such a big project anymore?
Well, when you're doing it in bulk, like I said, it's hours and hours. So when you have a reduced staff in the warehouse and it's the middle of summer and your projects have picked up and you've got a lot more orders going out the door, that becomes a thing that's nice to do. It's not getting an order out the door and getting it picked, packed, and shipped. Versus putting it in using AI to do it. Now all of a sudden you're doing 2 or 3 a day, 4 a day. And it becomes part of your standard routine and standard work in a warehouse environment. It becomes a lot more manageable and the data doesn't get stale over the course of the month, right? It's every day it's reading it and helping you move.
Every day.
So it's a way to use AI on the back end. And then there's a couple of other things that I think about. One of them is the whole route optimization.
Yes.
And this came through, I put in route management software for our trucks back in 2012. So this is nothing new for distributors. What's new is the way AI can make this even better, faster. So anybody who's ever put in route software for the first time, they're going to be like, oh my Lord, the things are happening in my routes. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But now it's able to say, let's do this in real time. So even the route management software was here, design the route, go and come back.
Right.
Now you're able to say, design the route for me. And by the way, there was an accident on I-95. Change this one, move this route around, and it's doing it all for you dynamically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it helps you make that route optimization much easier. And then the last thing I'll say about this is, truck optimization is one of the most important things, right? Is the truck going out full or is it not?
Yes.
In a lot of cases, in my case, that second run we were making was not going out full. We didn't have the AI software to be able to do it. Now all of a sudden, it's going to match the capacity and the weight and the volume and the delivery requirements, put all that together, maximize the miles, and all of a sudden you become much more efficient.
Yeah, enormously,
Yeah,
enormously. And it's kind of more efficient in two areas, more efficient within my operations and also more efficient, hopefully within the corporate roles that we're seeing and kind of that planning activity, or not even corporate, but maybe operational planning roles.
right. So I think the whole conversation about where to start really becomes, and you've heard other people say this, so it's not new. It's where's my biggest problem first. But what you can't be afraid of is maybe the biggest problem is on the back end of your business, and you need to do that.
Mhm.
There's a company that we work with called Continuum, and they do reverse logistics.
Mhm.
That back in my day, and that's really another term that's dating me. That was another process that was hard to do and it was arduous and it always came up last, but it cost us a whole bunch of money. And now you've got systems that are able to do that. So you've got to really think about what's the thing that's costing you the most and it's costing you the most productivity and really put some effort into that. The software is out there for pretty much all of it. It's a matter of where do you want to put your dollar and where are you willing to do, where are you willing to put it? Right? Because again, the idea of saying I don't need five less people in the warehouse because we've done this versus I can optimize 25 new sales orders coming in, it's a totally different mindset.
It is big time. There are, I think part of what we want to bring with to our audience is outside perspective and also um, sorting through the news so you don't need to. One of the things which we're observing a lot within the tech industry is the big impact that language models and these frontier models are having on the practice of building software. And that's not surprising. This is something that these major companies like OpenAI and Google and others have explicitly focused on. They want to be great at building software. The two big reasons are one, this is a $340 billion segment of the economy worldwide. And the second is it gives them a competitive advantage. So, as a software producer, if I can produce software faster and more efficiently, great, I get to win. And when I'm in a race condition against others, even better. But what this means is we're getting a preview into what is going to happen within so many of these corporate roles today by looking at the software industry. So we know like that is not necessarily a huge component of our business in terms of spend, but there are some things we can learn. And the two I really want to point out and bring into this that we see are one, there are significantly shortened cycle times. So when I think about your example, Brian, of, hey, previously I would only want to run this process once a month.
Mhm.
And the reason I only want to run it once a month is because it's a pain to go do. It's going to take me hours, and I really need to focus for those hours and remove my other distractions to get this thing done. But now the cycle time is more like an hour or more like a few minutes, as long as I have more or less the right data. So I don't need everything perfect. The that's a big impact.
Yeah.
It sounds like, oh, that's good for productivity. It is good for productivity. But what this means is how I think about the primary things that I'm measuring my team for quality and for output is different. Because if I'm able to, like, let's just take a simple inside sales example. If I can send out 100 emails, which are personalized, relevant, has the right information. And previously, I could only send out 20 emails a day with that same level of quality. Then, am I so output constrained? Not so much. But what I really want to make sure of is my vision right? Am I working towards the right things? So do I have the right type of personalization in there? Did I have access to the right data to pull up?
Mhm.
Is this even the right way to reach out to my customers, or should I take a radically different route? That's vision. So previously, we were super focused and are really focused on output. How many tasks can you get done in the day? Well, what happens when we're able to, like in the P&G example, get twice as much done? Okay, so am I going to judge people on quantity, or am I going to judge them on the quality of those decisions that they're making? And I think that is where there's a massive opportunity for changing the way that we approach our business decisions and our business processes within the corporate portions or the operational planning portions of our organizations. So I I think so many of the things you talked about lead there, and that alone means I need to start thinking about where is this going to show up in my organization? Where do I need to go talk to HR to say, are we evaluating people the right way? Um,
Yeah.
Also, as I look at the outputs coming from my team, I may want to look and have other questions like, hey, tell me about how you arrived at this decision. Tell me about what the check was that you put into place. Like, I'm going to assume you got it done, but let's talk about quality level here. And how do we think about thinking? So just it's a whole new set of questions to get into that I believe that by putting a toe in the water and begin using these tools, it's going to be very revealing. So, Brian, you mentioned earlier about, hey, here's a prompt generator.
Yeah.
This is basically a way, this is the cheat code. This is the up, up, down, down, right, right, left, left, start, to getting a free pass on using these language models.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you all to try some things out like, hey, go read about the most recent tariff changes this week. This is my company. You don't have to have any private information in there whatsoever. This is my company. Here's the link to our website. How is this likely to impact our operations? You know, those are the types of questions that I think you should put to a language model to really push it and see what you get back. And then take that to your team to ask, what do you think about this? How do we approach this question?
Yeah, it's an amazing way to brainstorm with a team. So you're able to take a lot more data and put that as the input and then just start talking about it. And it's that idea that these AI models aren't perfect and they're not going to be perfect for a while. So the idea is that you have the human and the AI tool together. And those are the most powerful ways you can use that in any business, really. So that's an awesome discussion for that segment, man. That was good. So lastly, we want to bring on our tech guru, right? And we talked earlier about John Carrico from Epicor. And he's going to join us today. And we want to talk a lot about, what's going on within technology. And we'll have a good discussion with him. So John, welcome.
Thanks, Brian.
How you doing today, sir?
Great, really good.
Awesome, awesome. So why don't you take a few seconds and tell the audience about who you are and what you do at Epicor?
Sure. So I lead our product management teams for our distribution and building supply ERPs, as well as our Grow data platform and our Grow AI tools.
Yeah, I know I've seen Epicor's really focused on AI, and that's important, obviously. So, we were talking earlier a little bit ago about the software changes and things that are happening. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are you seeing, inside your organization?
Yeah, so Brooks actually hit on this earlier with mentioning about how organizations are looking or should shift to looking at like buying intelligence for a department, I think is what he said. And that's kind of the shift we're seeing. We're seeing a move from feature functionality, arms race to really outcome platforms. So that as you're looking for buying that intelligence for a department, they're really looking for like, what are we trying to improve or what outcome do we want to get out of that investment versus what features or functionalities do we need? So in the past, an ERP may have differentiated itself by adding a module and features. We have a better CRM, or we can, our inventory model supports 12 levels of unit of measure. That's shifting from that type of mindset to delivering outcomes where, we look to improve working capital by a certain percent, or we look to grow margin with AI-driven pricing, or we want to shrink your order to cash by 5 days. Buyers are less interested in what the software does and more interested in what it can deliver. So now we're focused on becoming a growth and efficiency partner not just a software provider. And so, and you both mentioned it, AI is, reshaping how we can deliver that value in the ERP. It's not just a bolt on. It's something that can, really shape and deliver the very foundation of the ERP system in a different way. We're using agentic AI to automate multi-step workflows across the different teams, whether it's sales, procurement, operations. We're using predictive and generative capabilities baked into forecasting and quoting and planning. We need to evolve the way in which we do things into a cognitive ERP system. We're investing heavily in data architecture. When we're bringing the AI capabilities and partnering with some of the leaders, whether it's Azure, OpenAI, et cetera. So I think what we're trying to do is and become a winning solution that's baked turning that ERP into a thinking adaptive system, not just a transactional backbone. And I think to kind of sum it up, I think customers are looking for that faster time to value, that seamless upgrade, that modular extensibility, and that ecosystem that's built on a foundation of APIs and integration so that we can quickly bring on new capabilities and solutions.
Yeah, this definitely isn't your father's ERP anymore, right? I mean,
Oh.
I love the fact that it's that you mentioned outcome based, because I don't know that people often think about it that way. I think it's more about, you said, what transactions can it do? What reports can I get out of it? How does it going to help me run the business? Versus how does your ERP now help me, make my working capital better, right? It's the holy grail, right? So I love that fact. So where have you seen maybe some distributors implementing some of these cases? Because that's one I think the audience is most interested in is, hey, I know I have to start somewhere. An ERP is a good place to start in terms of what I can get out of it. So where have you seen some interesting things?
Yeah, so I think, just kind of, bringing that theme forward, some of the big use cases we see are things like demand forecasting and inventory optimization. So having AI models really predict demand at the SKU location level. They can use hundreds of variables, thousands of iterations, bring in that seasonality, bring in economic data, even weather or local events and different trends, and all with the focus for the customer of that outcome of reducing overstock and stockouts, which improves their working capital and delivers better fill rates and customer satisfaction around that. We also see dynamic pricing optimization. So distributors dealing with thousands of SKUs and hundreds of customers, with negotiated pricing. AI can really recommend an optimal price that maximizes margin while protecting customer loyalty. And so we see, upwards of 5 to 10% margin lift in some of those pilot use cases. Additionally, automated quoting and order entry. So parsing through emails and PDFs and web forms to auto quotes. Yeah, it reduces cycle times. And, we see that coming down from hours to even minutes around that. So it's some really interesting use cases out there.
That's fascinating. Those are big hits. When we think about the pricing changes, the faster quote, kind of quoting time, I imagine that is going to have improvements in win rate. Just be the one that's fastest back with the lowest errors. That's sometimes half the battle. That's excellent. When I think about some of the things you mentioned, like I'm super curious about what cognitive ERP might be, and how you all kind of envision that playing out, even in terms of like what's some of the vision there?
Yeah, so cognitive ERP, shifts our role from a provider to a partner, or from a system builder to an intelligent enabler. So we see customers and distributors, they're not just buying tech, they're thinking of a partner who helps them compete, adapt, and really win in a chaotic market. So a cognitive ERP isn't just about data or workflows. It's about the awareness, the reasoning, the learning, and the action, so that the ERP can understand patterns across different functions, whether it's sales, operations, finance, inventory. It can recommend actions. Sometimes it can take those actions autonomously. It can interact conversationally with users, which is a huge difference. Think of being able to just ask it a question and provide a response, or giving it a voice command to do something that you would typically take 5 or 6 or 7 clicks and multiple different screens to do, and one that can learn over time, provide a feedback loop, provide reinforcement. So essentially, it's something that thinks with you, not just for you. So it's a complete different change in the way we do things and the way we think about an ERP.
Yeah. So it's really building upon those system of record assets that you all have to up level to let's sense, recommend, consider, and interact with the environment. And that's really a big change in the type of system that is available there. It's not just I shouldn't say just there's a decades worth of work that have gone into building out a very robust system of record set of applications. And now it's, how am I going to work with those things back and forth within my processes?
Yeah, I mean, Brooks, you're dead on, and I think it's to kind of sum it up, the ERP is becoming that living learning platform. It's no longer a static piece of software. So I think that's how we see it. And then as we build out different use cases, if you put in front of that use case what's the outcome or value we're trying to deliver associated to it, it really helps us fast track solutions for our customers that would have taken months or years to try to otherwise recognize, and have much more steps or links to have to do and complete the things that can be done so quickly today.
What do you think enables that?
Well, obviously the technology. I think the technology that we're injecting with the agentic network really changes the game with how our distributors can interact with their software. Instead of a single AI model like forecasting and summarizing, the agentic AI network that we're embedding involves autonomous agents that work together, each with a common goal, the memory, the ability to reason or take action. It's almost like the ERP's a team of virtual employees for the distributor. So it's, think of it as your digital middle management. Comes your analyst, your coordinator, your decision accelerator. So it's not replacing your frontline teams. It's really multiplying their capacity. So it allows them to do significantly more, much more quickly than they have in the past.
That's fascinating. So it's really an all new layer of interaction and intelligent capability that you are placing on top of a very robust set of capabilities of existing.
Yeah, and not only that, Brooks, it doesn't sleep, so it's always on. And so it's always looking for opportunities. It can act in seconds. It can coordinate. So yeah, it's a huge game changer for us, in injecting that into our ERPs.
We've seen some a couple of cases, and let me be clear, like this is on the edge of organizations that have decided to change their structure in order to reflect those new capabilities. I think it's Klarna, I believe is the case, or it might have been another company as well, that decided to combine their IT and HR organizations. And people ask, like, why in the world would you do that? That sounds crazy. And their answer was, well, we now have so much interaction going on in between our agents in teams that we needed to think about our technology investments and our team structure at the same time and change some of our, how we hire, how we train in order to maximize the benefit that they were getting out of these really robust capabilities.
It's an entirely different way to think about structuring a distribution business. It's mind blowing what's capable, what's possible all of a sudden. And in the companies that adapt this mindset and what you're talking about, John, 5 years from now, and Jonathan's going to be doing a whole presentation at the conference about what does AI in 2030 look like. If you're not adopting this now, the things you're talking about, John, are going to be put, directly to the bottom line. This team works every day, all day, 24/7. If you're not doing that, you don't have that as a competitor. 5 years from now, you're not going to be in a good position.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider AI to be really table stakes today, and that it is a competitive advantage to jump in now, so that in 5 or 10 years from now, you are the leading edge, and you're the ones who have made it through this revolution, and are still operating. Because I think the ones who are late to adopt are going to miss out, and they'll miss out on some extremely competitive capabilities that will probably differentiate and allow companies to thrive much more meaningful and be able to deliver on the bottom line than those who don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think about like the position, and you're saying like being on the leading edge. Some companies will definitely be on the leading edge. I think also like there's a little bit of like need to shoot the gap. And the gap is the technology revolution that's coming about with AI. So, I want to get through that gap as, with those other companies that are similarly forward looking. And so as I'm making these investments, there are technology investments to make. Those are very important. But, as you're talking about, John, hey, we want to be more of a partner. The role that we can play is different. We're talking about being more outcome based. As either a CIO, owner, or executive, I might also want to think about what the things are that need to change around that to get the most out of my investment. Like there's a example from electrification. When factories were constructed, it was usually around a central pillar that they could run all of the other mechanical systems off of. And so that really impacted how you designed your teams, how you designed the building. And then when electrification came around, it gave you the opportunity of placing equipment in all different areas with different sizes and different teams. So the next set of really forward-looking companies said, hey, we need to go about changing where we put things, how we organize our work, how we organize our teams. And, that's a whole other set of things to consider, and that are going to have to move not at technology speed, but at human speed. So that the sooner I begin making some of these early investments, like one, there's the advantage of just the investment. And then two, there's the ROI that comes from equipping my organization with the right thinking that's necessary. So it's not just technology investments, it is technology investments and the other pieces that can really power me through that gap and likely ahead of my less forward-looking competitors.
Yeah, Brooks, I think you're dead on. And what we see with the distributors that are getting it right, they're really focused. They start with a problem like, hey, I want to increase fill rates, or I want to go after margin erosion, or I want to identify how my sales team can get greater efficiencies. And then they quantify that, like you talked about. We want to, what does a 1% increase or reduction mean in my working capital? What's the revenue upside of a better cross sell? They really quantify what that opportunity is, and then they design the solution, into that process. So it's not a bolt on; it's embedded into the workflow. It's embedded into the process itself, and they train and involve their users, which is getting that buy-in and really important in making sure that that team is at the table, and then they iterate fast on it. It doesn't always come out of the gate perfect, so you have to often iterate and tune the model and the workflow, and that's where having that buy-in is really important, because if it makes mistakes or doesn't deliver and you need to iterate on it, you have that team buy-in. So I think, Brooks, what you mentioned is like where we see the common mistakes, and that's that change management. AI doesn't replace the people; it typically augments them. So you can't skip that training. You can't skip that role clarity. And oftentimes you have to have some sort of incentives. Incentives help drive adoption. And then you also mentioned that investment in that data foundation. You can't just run AI on incomplete, dirty, or scattered data. You have to have a good data foundation to deliver it on. So I think some of those key things are making sure that you have the right opportunity, the right problem, the right value that you're trying to create, and then don't neglect change management, and make sure you have good data to work from it.
John, your organization's clearly really given a lot of thought to this. Are there some things that you could share with us that are about what did you all see and need to go through yourselves as you were exploring these tools for your own use, about your processes or teams or organizations? And obviously, no need to open the kimono too much on this one, so much as or are there some things that you'd impart to others who are going down this journey that you all have been through directly?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about that with our conversation. We know AI is becoming table stakes, that we have to um, really invest, and you can start small and still see 10x value with it. You don't need significant, huge investments to really start with AI. Especially if you're specific and focused on your use cases, and you have good data, you can really go after that. And we've got solutions that do that aren't huge, all encompassing. They're very focused. And we make sure that we have a good feedback loop as well. The longer you wait, the longer you're sitting off to the side, you're really missing out. And so you really want to jump in and start to learn and train your models, build your organizational comfort with AI, collect the good data that helps the AI become even better over time. And in fact, I would say, if you think you have messy data, that's something that you could start right there. Don't wait until the data is clean. Use AI to help you clean and structure that data. Don't
Great.
wait till you have an enterprise data strategy. Start with one high impact use case, and learn from that. Don't if you don't trust AI because it's messy or whatever, well, then design a human in the loop of that workflow, so you have that feedback from someone in the organization who feels confident and has that sway in the organization to say, hey, this is good data, or this is good results that we're seeing. Or you don't want to disrupt operations. Let AI work in a low risk, high pain area first, so you really get good results out of it. So take practical first steps, even if you have messy data. Try to deploy something and run it in a way that it can deliver results, and you can get buy-in and something that helps leverage it as you build more larger use cases. So I would say,
Awesome.
if you think about data, perfect data is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct of what you're doing. And so companies that embrace adoption of AI are going to leapfrog their competition.
Awesome discussion, fellas. We're up on time, but a couple things. There's a couple of anonymous questions in here, and I'll say to those folks who posted those, if you'll email me at bhopkins@distributionstrategy.com, I'll get those answered for you. But a couple last quick things before we break is I just need to kind of talk about what's coming up next at DSG. Next week, April 23rd, creating exceptional customer experiences. A lot about what we were talking about is how do you do that in this digital age that we're in? So Stephanie Kuntz from Palmer Donovan, Molly Langdon, the winner of the Woman of the Year Award with ISA, will be on our show, and we're looking forward to seeing that. And then April 30th, we've got the distribution guy, Will Quinn. Most everybody knows who that is. He's going to be on our show, and he's going to be talking about the 4-article series he posted about how to get the most from your tech stack. So it's a good conversation, good discussion. So make sure you join both of those. They're going to be great programs. So guys, that's a wrap for our first AI News and Gurus. John, thank you so much for your time today, sir. And Brooks, it was a great discussion, and hope everybody has a great rest of your week.
Thanks, gentlemen. Have a great week.
Take care.
Go ahead.